The following podcast is brought to you by the Johners Podcasting Network, found exclusively at WrestlingWithJohners.com.
And hello again, wrestling fans. We are back. It is Thursday. We're back at our regular day. Not necessarily time yet, but this is This Week in History, part of the Scumbags Wrestling Podcasting, brought to you by Coolbet, and as you just heard, also part of the Johners Podcasting Network and the Ontario Podcasting Network here in Ontario. So we're available everywhere you get your podcasts from. You can listen to us on Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, anywhere else. We're going to be adding on more channels, more worldwide exposure, and have announcements coming up with that in the next little while. Also, thank you for joining us on video-wise, whether it's on YouTube or on Facebook. By the time you see this, it's going to be Thursday evening. We're recording this in the afternoon. And I want to thank you for joining us wherever you are. Reach out to us on our social medias. They're all running across the bottom. We have, obviously, Twitter, Instagram, and easiest way of getting us is on Facebook, or just stop by our website, scumbagswrestling.ca. So that's all the introductions I need right at the moment, because we already did a lot of it the other day when we caught up on things. So, Jonesy, we are heading to Niagara Falls where you are. How are you?
I'm good. I just dealt with getting sprayed for cockroaches, so a lot of fumes.
Nice. Don't let it match, I guess. And I'm still at the hotel here in London. I got to check out tomorrow, but then we started trying to rearrange the house and put it back to normal, whatever that is, while we hopefully get it back renovated with the basement. But we're here. We're going to give everybody some entertainment with diving into the rich history of our great sport, as Tony Schiavone would say, and talk about everything that happened during the week of September 24th through the 30th. So if you're ready, so am I.
All right, we're going to start in London, Ontario, Canada. 37 years ago, Greg Valentine defeated Tito Santana to win the WWF IC belt, even though you got Tito holding it up. Maybe that was the beginning of the match. Anyway, Santana at the time of the match had an injured leg, and Valentine worked the leg during the bout and post-match. Santana had to be stretchered out of the ring. They would feud until July 1985 when Santana defeated Valentine for the title in the steel cage match. You can find that match on YouTube. It's not a very long match. It's maybe 3-4 minutes long at most.
Yeah, it's very short, and unfortunately, that was the closest thing I had to a picture for that match was the start of it with Tito holding it up. But for the visual, unless Albano was with him at the time, Greg at the time,
I believe Albano was there.
Then I might have been able to get an actual Greg Valentine and Albano celebrating afterwards, but.
Yeah, that was actually a huge shock back then for that to happen, because that was the first time that any WWF belt ever changed hands outside of, in Canada.
Plus, it's very unusual for it to happen non-televised.
Yes.
So they always like to.
It just showed at that time London was a hotbed for wrestling, because between Toronto, London, and Hamilton, they got a lot of good shows there.
Yep.
Moving on now, 26 years ago, WWF presented In Your House 3 triple header. From Saginaw, Michigan, the feature of the show was Winners Take All tag team match with all of the WWF championships on the line in one bout. The winners would take the losers' championships.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. That was kind of an interesting concept. And then, of course, I think later on you're going to tell what actually happened. But I think in a way, with all the titles that are existing right now, they should do this a little more often instead of having so many individual title defenses. It's a good concept. Maybe not what they wanted to do, because I think Bruce Pritchard talked about it one time, and that's why they pulled what they did with the actual match itself and the outcome. But sorry, I'll let you get back to what happened on the card.
I think it's something that they kind of could do now, because now they have a hell of a lot more belts. Like even a Survivor Series match where the tag team, both Raw and SmackDown, are on the line. And that would be a great way for them to, use their belts a little more efficiently. Because when you put that many belts in a match, it kind of takes away from the rest of it. But since they have so many belts, why not?
Yep.
Okay, so in that pre-show free-for-all match, Fatu defeated Hunter Hearst Helmsley. So Helmsley wasn't quite going up yet. Psycho Sid defeated Henry O. Godwin. Bret Hart defeated Jean-Pierre Lafitte. And the two dudes with attitude, Diesel and the WWF champion Diesel and the IC champion Shawn Michaels defeated the British Bulldog and Yokozuna to win the World Tag Team Championship. However, the next night on Raw, Owen and Yoko would have the belts returned to them, as Owen Hart, who was subbed out of the match, was the one who was pinned, as he was not the recognized champion at the time of the match, even though Owen was technically one half of the tag team champions at the time. So a little kind of odd change there. But in the post-dark match on that card was The Undertaker defeating King Mabel.
Yeah, and just for clarification on that one, they claimed that Owen Hart wasn't there, and that's why Bulldog substituted for Owen and was technically a tag team champion with Yoko that night. So it was them being the tag team champions and not Owen. And then, of course, Owen came in at the end and tried to attack, and they took out Owen, pinning him, and that's where the schmaz came of, oh, nope. So quite the Dusty type finish in that case. And if they were not going to do something with trading the belts, they shouldn't have probably painted themselves into that corner to do so. But hey, it was a little intriguing to wonder if one of the tag team champions were going to take a singles title.
21 years ago, WWF presented Unforgiven. This pay-per-view had a high buy rate due to the anticipated return of Stone Cold Steve Austin after recovering from a broken neck from about a year ago during the Owen Hart match. Some of the matches on the card, Taz defeated Jerry Lawler via knockout in a strap match. Raven made his WWF debut, interfering on Taz's behalf. Steve Blackman won a 10-minute hardcore battle royal to win the WWF Hardcore Championship by scoring the last decision within the time limit. The Hardy Boys defeated Edge and Christian in a steel cage match to win the WWF Tag Team Championship. Triple H defeated Kurt Angle in a no DQ match, and Mick Foley was the special referee. The highlight of the event was The Rock defeating The Undertaker, Kane, and Chris Benoit in a fatal four-way match to retain the WWF Championship.
Quite the star power in that main event there, and a lot of different styles as well. When you have the technical ability of Benoit, and then the brawling styles and big man styles of the Brothers of Destruction, and sort of the well-rounded version of everything with The Rock.
Absolutely. 15 years ago, TNA presented No Surrender from the Impact Zone at Universal Orlando. Two major announcements that night happened. Impact was moving to Thursday nights, and TNA had signed former WWE champion and Olympic gold medalist Kurt Angle. Hernandez and Homicide in an Ultimate X match to win the NWA World Tag Team Championship. And Samoa Joe defeated Jeff Jarrett in a Fans Revenge Lumberjack match. The Lumberjacks, 18 members of the audience with leather straps. That sounds like fun.
Fan interaction at its best.
Okay, all you indie promoters out there doing events, I want one of those matches. I would pay extra to stand there with a strap to, give me, like I pay $100 for that. Boom.
Yeah, well, depending on the organization you go to, especially a lot of the hardcore ones that are coming around lately with no rings and not like No Ring North, there's potentially a chance where they're going to be asking fans like they did in ECW to bring weapons and be interactive with it.
Mm-hmm. I'm not a super fan of the no ring. To me, that's not wrestling, but I can still see that they can still pull it off if they're good entertainers in that. But I'd like to see more of the kind of setup they had for Bloodsport.
Yep.
where you still have a mat, you just don't have ropes. Anyways, let's move on to, it's a happy 45th to this beautiful lady here. WWF Chief Brand Officer and wife of Triple H, Stephanie McMahon Lebec. She is a fourth generation McMahon and a lovely, lovely lady.
Yeah, to know that if you're a longtime collector of the magazines and that, which I have all my magazines back from 1988 till they stopped, she was actually in the catalogs posing with some of the merchandise as she was growing up. There's at least a hat, a rocker shirt, I think, and a couple other items that she, maybe I think a British Bulldog t-shirt as well that she was.
We'll have to talk about your collection at some point because I'd be interested to see if you have any of the inserts from the events you went to, because I don't think I kept any of those, but the little thin magazines, with the Spotlight, I think they were called.
I have a couple of them, yeah.
Yeah. All right, moving on to September 25th. 35 years ago in Detroit, Ronnie Garvin defeated Ric Flair in a steel cage match to win the NWA World Heavyweight Championship at the age of 42. The man with the hands of stone would drop the belt 2 months later, right back to Flair in another steel cage match at Starrcade 87. 28 years ago, Shawn Michaels, the then WWF IC champion, walks out on the company and is stripped of the IC belt for allegedly testing positive for doing the juice. He was offered a job with WCW. However, he chose to be the replacement for Jerry Lawler at Survivor Series 93. Jerry Lawler was gone due to being accused of raping and sodomizing a teenage girl, charges that would not be proven. Lawler and his Knights were scheduled for Survivor Series. Damn, WCW had been bad for Michaels not to accept for the amount of money they were probably offering him at the time, and he chose the team with Gaylord, Horowitz, and Valentine over Turner Money. That's something that really loves where he was.
He was definitely loyal to Vince, and Vince was loyal to him. I bet Shawn could have even jumped in 96, 97 and joined the NWO and Hall and Nash if he hadn't offered enough money, and it would have been him going instead of Brett. But he was loyal to Vince, and that's why Vince kept him and said goodbye to Brett.
Yeah, nothing against Shawn Michaels, but I think he would have had pretty much the same outcome as Bret Hart did.
Yeah, they wouldn't know of what to do with a Shawn Michaels either.
28 years ago at Madison Square Garden in New York City, Brian Christopher makes his WWF debut against a returning Jimmy Superfly Snuka. Christopher would later become the beloved Grandmaster Sexay. 21 years ago, WWF presented the first Raw is War on TNN after leaving the USA Network. And 21 years ago as well, on Nitro, Vince Russo defeated Booker T in a caged heat match to win the WCW championship. The next night on Thunder, Russo retired from in-ring action. This was the 9th time the title was vacated since Russo came aboard. Prior to the Russo era, that belt was only vacated 3 times. Also on that Nitro show, the Natural Born Thrillers, O'Hare and Ginger Crack, won the WCW tag belts in a battle royal because the tag belts were vacated. Surprise!
Yeah, that era definitely, Vince Russo proved that titles were just a prop and could be interchanged with anybody. And that's why they vacated it so many times and just went, okay, you guys are going to fight for it.
I found the last year or so at WCW was similar to, say, 94, 95 when they had Dungeon of Doom and that. They had still some good wrestling matches, but the storylines and all that were just...
Yeah. Once again, sometimes, like I said the other day on the last show, if you ignore the storylines and just enjoy the bell-to-bell action, you're good.
I agree. 20 years ago at a Smackdown taping from Dayton, Ohio, Test and Booker T defeated the Brothers of Destruction, Undertaker and Kane, to win the WCW Tag Team Championships. 15 years ago in Oklahoma City, the first match of Raw was browned out due to technical problems. Lita quickly won her match with a spear by Edge to Candice Michelle, and Lita would wrestle again that night against a one-armed Xena. 14 years ago at a Smackdown taping in Indianapolis, the WWE Cruiserweight Championship held by Hornswoggle is vacated and subsequently retired by General Manager Vicky Guerrero. That title started as the WCW Light Heavyweight Championship in October of 91. 38 men and 2 women, Medusa and Daphne, held the championship. The Light Heavyweight Championship was contested in 91 and 92 in WCW before the championship was abandoned. It was reborn as the Cruiserweight Championship in 96 with Shinhiro Otani winning the title in a tournament final. After the death of WCW, that belt was unified with the WWF Light Heavyweight belt. The Cruiserweight Championship was reborn 4 years ago following the Cruiserweight Classic, and actually that's probably like 9 years ago, with T.J. Perkins winning the tournament and the title.
Yeah, quite the lineage going on there, and especially when you said Daphne and Medusa were there. I think even Oklahoma had it, and he's not even a cruiserweight, but that's once again the Vince Russo era. It's unfortunate that the cruiserweights are not treated with as much respect as they were in Eric Bischoff's time, because Eric Bischoff knew that was going to attract the eyes, and then the main eventers were going to be what kept the people there, but they always lured people in by the great action of the cruiserweights.
And that's the type of stuff that kept people like myself watching. Is, again, WCW, their main events were, who cares, because we've seen them years and years ago, but the cruiserweights, that was the good matches. All right, to birthday, it's a happy 51st birthday of Yoshi legend Erika Shinshido, best known to Yoshi fans as AJ Kong. She debuted in 1986, and in November 92, she ended Bull Nakano's 3-year reign as WWA World Champion. Kong was briefly wrestled in the United States in 95, most notably scoring all 4 eliminations for her team in a Survivor Series bout. In one bout on Raw, she broke the nose of Shapira Asari. Kong was set to feud with the WWF Women's Champion Alundra Blaze, but Blaze, along with the entire women's roster, was released before the match could occur, and the division essentially abandoned.
Yeah, it was. I think it was supposed to happen maybe at a Royal Rumble, but then poof, as you said, the division got canned, and she didn't get brought over, and Medusa took the title with her, and Eric had her throw it in the trash, the pink belt. And we saw it resurface when Medusa got inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Moving on to September 26th, 44 years ago in New York City's Madison Square Garden, Dusty Rhodes defeated WWF champion superstar Billy Graham via countout. The Garden sold out for this one, so a few thousand had to watch at the Felt Forum via closed-circuit television. The Felt Forum, of course, is located below the MSG main arena, and it seats between 2,000 and 5,000 people. The theater has changed many names and currently is known as the Hulu Theater. This theater has hosted many events, including Pro Boxing, WCW in '93, NXT, Lucha Libre, Impact Lucha Invades New York, NFL, NBA, and FIFA drafts, and a whole bunch of other things, Jeopardy tournaments, Wheel of Fortune, and Survivor All-Stars final, and that Owen Hart and Ken Shamrock Lions Den match at WrestleMania, I do believe.
Yeah, I think that's where it happened. There's a lot of different rooms and arenas within that whole structure of MSG, where I think at one point you can actually have a basketball game and a hockey game played at the same time because of the different levels. What's interesting is it says it's 44 years ago that this match happened between Dusty and superstar Billy Graham. And a lot of people probably don't realize that Dusty did work in New York at that time, and him coming to the WWE as the son of the plumber and doing the common man different jobs, and the vignettes getting him in there being butchered, the garbage man and all those other stuff, and getting the polka dots was not his first time through the territory.
Yeah, that's one thing about the history of wrestling is a lot of these guys I had no clue were, in. Some of them we knew that were in there, like IRS guy, Rotunda, sorry. We knew he was there before, but there's a lot that's like, really? Moving on, 26 years ago in Tokyo, Japan, the Gladiator Mike Awesome defeated Hayabusa in a tournament final to win the FMW Brass Knuckles Championship.
It's interesting that came up in this list because tonight for Dark Side of the Ring is a profile on all the shenanigans, shall I say, of FMW and the deathmatch organization that it is, and all the secrets behind it. So that's tonight on this week's edition of Dark Side of the Ring.
Well, I look forward to that. 22 years ago, WWF presented Unforgiven. This event had a referee strike because of the abuse to officials and featured replacement referees. Jimmy Corderas was the only regular official on the show.
Scab.
Sorry, go ahead.
Scab.
That's
what they call people who cross the picket lines.
Yes.
No, I love Jimmy Corderas. I'm hoping to get him on one of our shows.
Yes, he definitely seems like a very nice man, and I know he sat in front of us at a JR thing. It would also be the last WWF pay-per-view for head writers Vince Russo and Ed Ferreira. They would leave a few days later for WCW. Some of the matches, D'Lo Brown defeated Mark Henry to win the WWF European Championship. Jeff Jarrett defeated Chyna by DQ to retain the WWF IC belt. Al Snow defeated the Big Boss Man in a bomb of a match. The Kennel from Hell match to return the WWF Hardcore Championship. Kind of a one of those ideas that it seems good until you actually put it on, and it's like the dogs didn't seem ferocious enough, and just unfortunately, if they were going to do that, they should have just gone with like alligators like they used to in the old roller derby days back in the 80s.
Yeah, it's the problem when you're working with animals and hoping they do what you want them to do. Instead, these dogs did not, and they were just basically at ringside crapping all over the floor.
Yes. And the main event, Triple H defeated The Rock, Mankind, Kane, The Big Show, and the British Bulldog in a six-pack challenge to win the vacated WWF Championship. Stone Cold Steve Austin was the special referee. 18 years ago, the Rundown feature movie premiered in theaters, which was a Strike Entertainment WWE Films co-production. The film, while generating well-liked by critics, was a bust at the box office. The film, budgeted at $85 million, makes just under $81 million, with only $47.7 million coming domestically, though I'm sure they made that up in video release. Movie legend Arnold Schwarzenegger has an uncredited cameo in the film. He would do the right thing and pass the torch to The Rock as the next action go-to actor. And it's not a bad movie. It's, I'd give it probably maybe 65 to 70%.
Yeah, well, when the rest of the cast also consists of Rosario Dawson, guy who played Stifler,
yes,
and also
his name escapes me as well.
I know his last name is Scott something, and then of course Christopher Walken. Can't go wrong. A decent array of cast. I think
that's what that kind of saved the movie, is the people that they cast in the movie. 17 years ago, Mariana Comolos passed away from breast cancer. She was just 35. She was born September 3rd, 1969 in Vancouver, British Columbia. Comolos would be known to WWF fans as Mrs. Cleavage. She was a former British Columbia competitive champion in 1997. She would appear on the cover of many fitness magazines. In a way there, she kind of looks like Marlena, but with muscles.
Yeah, it's like Marlena meeting up with a mixture of maybe Chyna or I'm trying to think what the other one's name was. It was Muscle Brown.
Oh, yes. 13 years ago, Smackdown airs for the final time on the CW network. The show, born as a one-off special in April of 1999, it was picked up by UPN and was the first regular primetime wrestling show on broadcast television since the 50s. It was an immediate hit and became the most watched show on the network. 8 years ago, Ring of Honor presented Glory by Honor 8, the final countdown from the Manhattan Center in New York City. The show is noted for the final appearances of both Bryan Danielson and Nigel McGuinness in ROH before heading to the WWE. Nigel would end up, however, in TNA after failing a physical for the WWE and the return of Jim Cornette just days after he was let go from TNA. Plus, Bret Hart appeared.
Quite the card.
6 years ago in Kansas City, John Cena defeated Alberto Del Rio, CM Punk, Dolph Ziggler, and Jack Swagger in a 5-man Hell in a Cell match to retain the WWE Championship. The bout was the post-show dark match for that evening's Raw taping, and it was the shortest Hell in a Cell match in history at the 5-minute mark. And it's a happy 39th birthday today for Kanado Yuri, a.k.a. Asuka. The former graphic designer and video game journalist made her wrestling debut with the all-Yoshi promotion A to Z. Chronic nephritis and inflammation of the kidneys forced Yuri away from the ring in 2006 and opened her own graphics design agency. A year and a half later, she would work as a freelance performer for over 12 promotions.
Yeah,
so she retired. You never know. She might work for one of the wrestling promotions doing that thing.
Yeah, I think she was working with Shimmer or something before being picked up by WWE and being brought in as Asuka, and she was one of the longest reigning NXT Women's Champion in history. I think Shayna Baszler did surpass her, but right now she's currently out with, I believe, a shoulder or elbow injury. We're just waiting for her to come back, and we'll see if she gets drafted to SmackDown as part of her return.
September 27th, 56 years ago, Bruno Sammartino's WWF Championship belt was stolen from a locked car in New York City, and it's actually never been recovered. 27 years ago in Osaka, Japan, Norio Honaga defeated Wild Pegasus, being Chris Benoit, in the finals of a one-night tournament to win the vacated IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship, which was vacated because of Jushin Thunder Liger had a broken leg. Others in the tournament included Black Tiger, which was Eddie Guerrero. 26 years ago at a WCW Saturday night taping in Atlanta, Georgia, Harlem Heat defeated the American Males, Marcus Bagwell and Scotty Riggs, to win the WCW World Tag Team Championship. However, the match was never acknowledged and was retaped 2 weeks later with the same result.
Yeah, and I was on their way to having 10 WCW World Tag Team titles for the brothers.
You know what? I'd say they were the best tag team that WCW ever had.
Yep, I would agree.
23 years ago, WWF presented Breakdown in Your House from the Cops Coliseum in Hamilton. I'm not sure if it was called Breakdown because the fact that it was in Hamilton and that place is... Anyway.
Yeah, in the main event, saw the triple threat with both the Brothers of Destruction trying to get the belt away from Steve Austin. And there was a bunch of other... I think this was also where Christian ended up debuting. At ringside.
Cool. September 28th, 36 years ago, the AWA presented Super Clash 85, Night of Champions, from Comiskey Park in Chicago, Illinois. Over 20,000 fans were in attendance for the co-promoted card presented under Pro Wrestling USA banner. NWA, WCCW, and All Japan Pro Wrestling were all represented on the card. Jim Crockett would pull all his performers out of future AWA events in Pro Wrestling USA due to a dispute over ticket gate sales. Really? Promoters weren't honest about their ticket gate sales? No way.
No.
Some of the matches sorry, go ahead.
I'd never believe that, considering Dave Meltzer's always saying that WWE usually bumps up their gate numbers for WrestleMania by at least 20%.
Yeah, and I question that sometimes of when they do that, because would they not then have to pay taxes on those supposed sales?
Yeah, good question.
Steven Regal generated. Oh, wait a minute. There we go. Steven Regal defeated Brad Riggins to retain the AWA World Lightweight Heavyweight Championship. Sherry Martel defeated Candy Devine to win the AWA Women's Belt. Ric Flair defeated Magnum TA to retain the NWA belt. And Rick Martel and Stan Hansen fought to a double DQ in an AWA World Heavyweight Championship match.
Yeah, I looked it up when looking at the card, and you said have Steve Regal defeated Brad Riggins. This is not Steve Regal, also known as Darren Matthews, the NXT GM. This is a different gentleman by the name of Steve Regal.
No. Well, that is interesting. Steven Regal. Different. I'm just putting a note in here. There we go. All right. 24 years ago in Kawasaki Stadium in Japan, Atushi Onada, oh man, I have problems with this one today. Oneida defeated Wing Kimura in a no ropes barbed wire exploding landmine cage match. On the undercard, Masato Tanaka defeated Mike Awesome to unify the FMW Brass Knuckles and Independent Heavyweight Championships. Oh, that's a great picture.
Yeah, I'm not sure if this is actually from that match. This might be one he did with Terry Funk, but it was he definitely loved doing his exploding barbed wires and stuff like that. So
I sure hope on that Dark Side of the Ring they show clips of when Sid Vicious was in a match over there in a floating ring on like the bay side. It was like outdoors, and you can find it on YouTube. It's quite amusing to watch. 23 years ago on Raw's War from Detroit, Michigan, Vince McMahon attempts to award the WWF Championship to Undertaker and or Kane when Steve Austin crashes the ceremony in a Zamboni. And the Brothers of Destruction break McMahon's legs because they can. Yeah, that was definitely one of their finer moments, especially I think this is the one where he had to do a duck because it was quite dangerous. He almost like chopped his head off going through one of the doors. If I remember, that was the one.
He was coming through where the Titantron was, and then also he was dragging backstage lighting behind him with the Zamboni. And when he came to a stop, he actually did move the ring a slight bit. And then went over the top of it and into the ring and clotheslined.
Yes, it was definitely, they tried to kind of regenerate that feeling with the milk truck and the beer truck. But I think this one was probably, for me, the best because they were using what's already there at the hockey arena. And, just kind of how, if hockey was a part of wrestling, there you go.
Yeah, and it didn't necessarily mean that if Steve Austin could turn the ignition on, that he could drive anything. Because he might not have driven it into the ring if he had been properly advised on this use of a Zamboni.
Yeah, I'm sure he was given a quick tutorial, and that was about it.
Yeah.
23 years ago on Nitro from Rochester, New York, Hulk Hogan and Bret Hart fought to a no contest. It is the only televised singles match between the two in wrestling history. 21 years ago at a Smackdown taping, the British Bulldog and Triple H fought to a no contest in the WWF Championship match. The Rock was the special referee, and it features perhaps the best people's elbow ever, where Rocky slid with his shoes, kind of, I don't know if they were more like, I think the soles were more kind of like a bowling shoe, because he got one hell of a slide on that.
Yeah, I think they were just regular dress shoes, but because there weren't necessarily his ring gear. He got a good slide on that canvas.
Mm-hmm. It's a happy 29th birthday to Nathan Everhart, best known to wrestling fans as Jason Jordan. And it's a happy 58th birthday to Steve Blackman. He was born in Annville, Pennsylvania. Blackman took up competitive bodybuilding and weightlifting before trying professional wrestling. Blackman briefly worked for Stu Hart's Stampede Wrestling before making sporadic appearances for the WWF way back in 1988. He defeated David Sammartino in his debut match for the company. He considered a full-time contract with the company, but contracted malaria and dysentery while wrestling in South Africa in 1989. I wonder if he passed it on to Owen Hart years later. Blackman would be bedridden for 2 years, during which time he lost most of his muscle mass. After recovering from malaria, Blackman spent 4 years in physical therapy. He would take up martial arts, specifically Taekwondo and Eskrima. After getting back to fighting shape, Blackman contacted friends Owen Hart and Brian Pillman for a WWF tryout, and the rest is history.
Yeah, looking back at what he did look like before this picture, and coming into what most people recognize him and remember him for, he kind of almost looked like Billy Jack Haynes in '88. He had the more thicker hair and the beard and everything, and you would think that they could have been brothers.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was never a fan of Steve Blackman. I don't know. I didn't think much of his matches, and I don't know. He seemed to be kind of faking his enthusiasm being there because he didn't have any.
Going through the motions and rather dry.
Yeah.
Making Lance Storm sound like look like he's having a party.
Yeah, and when they give him weapons to go to the ring, why does a guy like that need weapons if he's that dangerous?
Though he did have a good moment with Shane McMahon climbing up the side of the screen and knocking Shane off.
Yes, he did. September 29th, 36 years ago today in St. Paul, Minnesota, Jim Garvin and Steve Regal defeated the Road Warriors to win the AWA World Tag Team Championship.
This would be the Steve Regal that was in the Super Clash card.
Ah, yes.
Not Darren Matthews.
So that definitely would make sense, yes. 33 years ago in North Carolina, Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard defeated The Rock and Royal Express, Ricky Morton and Robert Gibson via submission to win the NWA World Tag Team belts. 28 years ago at a WWF taping in Portland, Maine, the Rock and Roll Express make their WWF debut with a loss to Well Done after interference from Jim Cornette and the Heavenly Bodies. Man, you're having a bad time when you can't win against Well Done.
Well, they were on the main card before the Rock and Roll Express were. So.
No. 23 years ago at a Raw is War taping in East Lansing, Michigan, D'Lo Brown defeated X-Pac to win the WWF European Championship. The show airing 6 days later is most noted for Mankind, who attempted to cheer up Mr. McMahon with the introduction of a sock puppet.
Actually,
did I skip one?
No, that one's actually coming up next week.
Oh, this one was supposed to be erased. Okay, I'm just gonna kill this.
That's one. Okay. That's that'll be a preview for next week. When,
that's for next week.
The birth of Mr. Sacco and Bedpan McMahon.
See, I didn't do too well in school when it came to editing. Anyways, 18 years ago on Raw from Chicago, Illinois, Rob Van Dam defeated Christian in a ladder match to win the WWE Intercontinental Championship. And it's a happy 51st birthday to Stacey Lee Carter, best known to wrestling fans as Miss Kitty, or one of the other King's Court team members, former wife edition, the Cat.
Yeah, and after being with Jerry Lawler, I think she was left him after hooking up with Russ Haas, Charlie Haas's brother, and he passed away. But I don't think they're together now, but she had been with also Sin Bodhi.
No. Yeah, she was pretty, or is pretty. September 30th, the last day of this week in wrestling. 61 years ago, both Shohei Giant Baba and Antonio Inoki made their professional wrestling debut for the Japanese Wrestling Association. 49 years ago, WWF presented Showdown at Shea Stadium in Flushing, New York. It would be the first of 3 events in the WWF held at what became the former house of the Mets. In the feature bout, WWF champion Pedro Morales and former champion Bruno Sammartino fought to a draw for the title. The bout ended after 65 minutes due to curfew regulations. And this was, I believe, clipped off of Shawn's copy. 19 years ago on Raw from Houston, Texas, Kane defeated Chris Jericho to win the WWE IC belt. And today would have been the 47th birthday of Chris Barton Atkinson, a.k.a. the youngest of the bunch, Chris Von Erich. He is in the WWF Hall of Fame with his family. And last birthday, it's a happy 43rd birthday for the original Go Daddy Girl and former WWE diva, Candice Michelle.
There we go.
And that is all for this week in wrestling history. My usual blurb isn't there, so I'm kind of lost. I know it has something to do with this week in pro wrestling history. Is compiled by the vast land of Google, CapesideSeats.com, and of course, everyone that ever went to a show took pictures, uploaded them somewhere. All the news people. If it wasn't for all of them, a lot of this history would be lost. So it's great to always look down memory lane, and those that help us put this out there, Coolbet, Coolbet, stay cool, bet responsibly. Go check them out, and that's it for this week.
Yeah, we're always happy to have Coolbet as part of our sponsorship of these shows and getting us out there. And go check them out. Sports game betting and leave table betting. Thank you for joining us. It is a Thursday evening, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your night and weekend. We'll talk to you next week on another edition of This Week in History. See ya.